That was quick.
Quick draw, quick draw, quick draw.
Man, I just signed on there and
Oh, did you?
the phone was ringing.
I had to restart my computer, so I knew it was a minute or two late. So I popped up, I saw you were green, and I hit the dial button.
Oh, I like it, man. Well, actually, I've been waiting for about 5 minutes. Well, I've been waiting all afternoon.
Yeah, I know you have. Yeah, I know you have.
I am on call. It is Father's Day, though. Happy Father's Day to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the... I did, man, and a big... hope everybody else out there had a wonderful Father's Day too for all the dads out there. But yeah, I did had a solid day. I had hung out at home, went over to my dad's house, had brunch with his family, and then came back home and we watched a little Beauty and the Beast with Allie and Hayden and my mom.
That's good, man. I'm
thoroughly disappointed
in
the movie.
Oh, really?
Oh, it was terrible acting. I'll be honest, I was kind of looking forward to it. Sometimes I like remakes, and we do a lot of Disney in my family, and so I was trying to come into it with an open mind, and oh man, it was a total nutter letdown.
Man, well, I'm sorry to hear that, bro. I know you're looking forward to that movie.
Yeah, man, it was the highlight of my weekend.
Yes.
Anyway, but yeah, good weekend overall. Always a jam-packed weekend when you're doing the birthday, Father's Day back-to-back. So,
oh yeah,
yeah, all
Happy
good.
Birthday.
Birthday was Saturday, Father's Day today, and then back to reality tomorrow.
Yeah, big man at campus. Don't let the post-holiday bum you out, man. I mean, you're not.
Oh yeah, I know, man. I just have to go back to my regularly scheduled fatherly duties and being 37 tomorrow. Yep. Man, rough life.
Yeah, one step closer to that next age group. I like it. Yeah,
I'm sitting mid-pack right now in that 35, 39, so I have some more business to take care of in this age group before I move on to the old 40, 44 and kick it with the old dudes.
Yeah, man, that's going to be a good feeling for you.
Well, maybe. It sucks. It doesn't get any easier until sometimes 45, 49, and then even your group. I mean, it's just, it's never ending.
No, it's not going to get any easier.
If you're fighting at the pointy end, it's just it's gonna be pretty tough. But
it's all relative,
It is, man. It's all relative, and looking forward to doing this cast, and pretty pumped at the patrons that have signed up, and appreciate everybody that's helped us out with that, and hopefully everybody else also enjoyed the bonus cast we did from the Muncie 70.3 race preview, and looking forward to today's podcast too.
Yes, it's going to be a good one. All right, we're going to start with a topic that's been kind of a hot item in our closed Facebook group. Search Crushing Iron Group if you're looking for us in there, and then we'll let you in there. It's really got some good stuff going. But one of the issues was Zach was talking about, he had just done Escape from Alcatraz, where they canceled the swim. And the big topic is, how should a race handle this? Because it's becoming more and more common, it seems like, to me. But maybe I'm just, maybe I just don't know. But it seems like stuff's getting canceled and shortened all over the place. And we've kind of addressed this before, but even my race in Chattanooga was shortened. So I'd be curious to hear your perspective on it, and then I'll kind of give mine as well.
Well, I mean, I think that
it's expensive, that race.
Oh, dude, it's $750 for an Olympic. Yeah. Not to mention your travel and accommodations and food, everything else considered, to go to San Fran. This one, I think, a couple things. One, it was called by the Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard basically waved it off and said, this ain't happening. And I think there are a couple of extra logistical issues to take into consideration with this race, where you're not I think it's a 1 mile swim, maybe even over a 1 mile swim for this race. It might even be a 1.2, to be honest. I think they're swimming the full 1.2. So the Coast Guard or the race director and the volunteers and the swim support, they're covering a full 1.2 or whatever the distance was, 1 to 1.2 miles, versus most courses that come from the beach or start where they're just going out maximum of half the distance and coming back in. So it's a much shorter, smaller area to cover from a safety standpoint. So I think they're already kind of sitting behind at this point. And then that's always usually pretty rough conditions anyway there, which is one of the reasons a lot of people do it. I think the big frustration I heard from a lot of people was, I think the other areas of the race weren't necessarily, I think it's all gone a little bit downhill the last few years. As the price has gone up, and when you cancel a swim, that's like such an important part of this race. It is the escape part. It's no longer the escape from Alcatraz when you don't do the swim. Yeah. It's just, the San Francisco or whatever it is triathlon. And so I think that, that whole experience was taken from these individuals. But at the same time, if they had this race and somebody loses their life, then we're having a different kind of conversation. And, I was thinking about this earlier. What the saddest thing is that less people would do a race the next year if the swim was continuously canceled versus going back the next year if the course would have gone on in decent conditions and somebody had passed away. Oh
yeah, certainly. I think you're right on that. And
don't you think that's totally messed up? It blows my mind. It's true. I'd find it hard pressed for me to argue with me on that. Is that it's like I want what's best for me and what's my expectations. And I've been not in that exact position for the Escape from Alcatraz, but the first race that I did when I was coming back from being away from the sport and getting sober in 2013, the very first race I did, I went down to Gulf Coast, signed up for the sprint, and they canceled the swim. And I was like, oh my God, all I wanted to do was get in that water. All I wanted to do was do this. But in the scheme of things, it's one race, but I think that where race management companies and race directors can kind of meet people in the middle is how they took care of the athletes and they go above and beyond and they execute other areas of that race really, 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 really well, and make the experience, it's all customer service. Yeah. It's like when you go to a restaurant, you have a bad entree. If they comp the entree and they give you a free dessert and go above and beyond, you're actually more likely to come back and do it and eat there again. Versus you. And we've talked about this before.
Well, that's my whole thing, dude. It's like I get the safety part, and I'm not even gonna try and argue that. I also know that frankly, there's a little bit of risk every time you get in that water, there's not that situation, there was, it was probably too much risk. I'm not saying they should have had it, but my thing is always, how do they handle it? And I don't know, like I thought that the preliminary response is that anybody that wants to do it again next year actually automatically gets in it rather than has to do a lottery, which I suppose is something, but I don't know, man. I feel like that's a third of the race at least. It should be a third of the money refunded, and I don't know how they do that. I know that there's always going to be weather constraints, and there's always going to be something going on. But it seems like these races would be able to come up with some kind of insurance for that or something like that. And I don't know. I just I look at all the money Ironman's making, and then they kind of like, this isn't Ironman. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that. If they take a big part of your race away, or it's like, there's just something about the fact that I'm not really complaining that they shortened it at Chattanooga when I did it this year, but it's still, every time I say, hey, I just did the half and, I did this, but they shortened the swim. So it's not like it's just hard for me to juxtapose the real time aspect of it or something. And so I get that when people think about it like that. And I just wish they would be, like you're saying, better customer service about it, because, come back next year and we'll let you do it again.
Yeah, okay.
That seems bogus to me.
I'm going to fly to and from San Francisco twice to do the race I wanted to do the first time. Oh, well, thanks for that. I appreciate you.
Yeah, you just got $750 from me. Pay my flight or something.
And I understand that the races, like especially this race and where they put it on, I'm sure it's got to be just insanely expensive to put on with the road closures and what they have to do in that part of California. But here's the deal: is you're not thinking about making money the next year. You're thinking about continuing to make money years 3, 4, and 5 after this. If you're just telling people to come back the next year, this is when you take a loss. I mean, and you don't even take a loss at this race. I mean, they're still going to, it's like, you're going to profit this year. You invite these people back to, come for free or to participate. But it's not even that. It's like, yeah, $750 is a race entry, but, round trip flights, if you're coming from the East Coast or even Central, it's expensive, and the hotels aren't cheap. And it's like, it's a long time, and a lot of money to put in and invest and save up for. And a lot of people do this as a bucket list race. And when you go to do this, and you have that, you have I don't want to say devalued, because I mean, the experience is what it is, and I know the swim is a huge part of it, but it's the one leg that makes that race what it is. And so if I mean, it's you got to go above and beyond. You got to be, oh, well, you can still pay again to come next year. Like, I understand they have to be and sustain a business, but at the point where they're at, when it is so important that, you should, do a better job and be more customer athlete focused and centric in order to make sure that you're continuing to be able to offer this race, in 2018, 19, and 2020.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. That's enough of that, I think. I want to move on. I mean, because it's in the similar vein. They just announced that Ironman Coeur d'Alene, this will be the last year for it.
Yeah.
And I guess they've added 10 Kona slots this year specifically for that race, and kind of as a like, hey, look what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was looking. So this race used to be very popular.
It did, yeah. It was one of the most popular, if not the most popular North American races for a long time. Before there was, so many extra ones.
Yeah. And I did something kind of interesting that I think you might be into here, and we can kind of go from here. But I just because I did it for all the North American races, I was kind of looking at from 2012 to 2016 are the most recent race, or in some cases they haven't been around that long. But I just kind of I went and looked at the results, and they show athletes, and I'd use that number as far as how many participated in the race. Mm-hmm. And I looked at Coeur d'Alene, and in 2012, they had 2,797 racers, almost 3,000 people did Coeur d'Alene in 12. And this year, or last year, they did 1,346, which is almost 1,500 less in 5 years.
Man.
So, yeah, I mean, that was such a great race. And you just think mainly it's because they've added more of these races? Or is it? Yeah. It's also, though, I think because that's such a tough race to get to that, once people do it, they've done it, and I don't think it's probably a big repeater race. That's just my guess. I don't know.
Because they've actually, I mean, they've added so many additional Canadian races, and then also West Coast races with fulls that, even from a demographic or from a geographical standpoint, like it's hard to get to no matter where you're coming from, and people just have chosen to stay, whether it's closer to home or they've already done it, or they don't hear as much about it anymore because there's all these other ones. And the courses, it's not the most difficult, but it's not the easiest either. It's kind of one of those mid-level difficulty ones. Mm-hmm. And people a lot of times try to stick away from that. But I honestly think like it's to a certain point, like the town probably sees, well, if a lot of it's on the town as well, because if the town sees dwindling participation, then the inconvenience that it imposes on the residents there becomes much more of a risky business. If you're not bringing in 3,000 people with all family and friends, and they're not spending all this money on lodging and food and merchandise over four days to a week, and that's cut in half, and then maybe even probably less this year, then now the town's thinking, all right, maybe we've done this dry. And maybe it's time to move on and give our people a break. But I think that from what I understand, they're keeping the 70.3 race there. So it's an interesting dynamic. But again, like if you're a business and you don't see it making money, I'm sure it's not easy to get to from Ironman standpoint either. And if you gotta do stuff there and it's dwindling, then you see a time to cut it off before it might be in the red, like maybe next year, then you go ahead and just part ways before you start to lose any cash.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, if you wouldn't mind continuing on this little ride or diversion here, I have some other stats from these other races, and I think it might be kind of interesting just to sort of look at what's going on and maybe analyze or talk about some of the thoughts that we have, or reasoning.
Go for it.
And the next one is Louisville. All right, so isn't there talk that they could be done as early as next year too?
I think I have not heard that. I don't hear everything, obviously, but I had not heard that. I'd be surprised.
Well, I think this was a big. What I heard was that the city of Louisville does really well on it, but it's the like the LaGrange areas and places like that aren't getting cut in on the on
those
the prize. So they're a little bit and we've seen the tack throwing and things like that, and heard the bad rumors out in the. So, but I really found this interesting. Okay, so like in 2012, Louisville, and you did that one, right?
I was there.
You were there.
Tax
3,014 people.
Wow.
That year.
We're signed up. Not that many started. No way.
That's probably not right. Yeah, you're probably right. But I'm just saying.
We'll say 2,700 conservatively, which is still a crap ton of people.
But still, we're just maybe not racing, but like if they paid the money, that's where I'm going with this. So, and then 2013 was 2,600, and 2014 was just about 2,100, and then that's when they moved it. They thought, well, it's too hot, nobody wants to do it, which I found very interesting to think about when I realized they had 3,000 people sign up that one year. And I would think that'd be better for them to have 3,000 people sign up and only 2,500 do it. It's like
seriously.
But so they moved it, and then to the first year in October that they went to 2,500 people did it. And last year 2,600. So it's not like it's even really changed it that much as far as registration, moving it to a cooler or later time of the year.
I think that had something to do with something with the city. I think it was an easier date for the city to make work when they went and talked through contract extensions to do it with the city. I'm not 100% certain on that. If anybody's listening has kind of insider information, I'd love to know the ins and outs of that. But I think that was more the gist of it, because it's never been a sellout race, but it's always held that if you're an IM race and you're holding over 2,000, you're in the green. You probably have honestly, you probably have close to the do not start in October as you did in August, just strictly based because how far it is down the road in the year.
People just kind of throwing the towel.
They just throw in the towel. But it's one of my favorite races, top 2 or 3. And if it went, I would be genuinely sad.
Yeah, I would be too. I was just sad when they moved it out of August, because that just seemed like it had that sort of edge about it. And I mean, 2013. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, there's more people that did it in August than there was in October, or at least signed up. So it's like...
I think that was also the first year of Chattanooga.
Yeah.
Right? And so... In
2014
in the same summer. Yeah, so I think that was...
That's what hurt that year's attendance, for sure.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, so you finding this interesting at all, or no?
No, I am. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So then I just realized the next one I had on here was Wisconsin, and that's basically been pretty much 2,800 across the board.
That's a flat line race sellout. Not instantaneously anymore, but still it doesn't matter. As long as it sells out, it sells out.
Yeah, and they've had, for the most part, they have really good weather, and, it's just been, for whatever reason, has been steady. Not much to say there. Chattanooga, since 2014, has been creeping upward. So it started at 2,349, and last year was 2,716.
Not this year.
Yeah, but I heard it's close to selling out again, which is another thing I want to get into with you, because
it's June. It was selling out like day of or within a month.
Right.
So,
but that's another thing I want to ask about is like if I skip down to say Arizona, which is always a sellout race, right?
mm-hmm.
All right. So in 2012, they had almost 3,000 people in that race.
Yep.
And the next year was like 200 less, and then 2014 they had 3,200, and I think for some reason there was a race canceled and they got a big transfer rate.
That was the year that Tahoe got canceled, I believe, and then people got to go to a later race, I believe. Could be wrong.
That's what I thought was too.
We'll have to ask Derek Broaders, but I may be wrong.
You could be, but I think you're right, because that was the next year after.
Yeah.
So, and then it was 2,600 in 2015, and last year it was like 2,400. So I don't understand why it's selling out, but it's gone from 3,000 to 2,400. Do you have thoughts on that?
You know, I'm not sure. I think that, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know they always oversell because they know that a certain amount of people aren't going to come.
Mm-hmm.
So I know they do that. You know, I think, you know what? I think that they have changed some part of the course, and I think it's more condensed. And they're also building a stadium. I think they're building a stadium close to there to the out and back, and it's made things more congested. At least that's what I've heard from the 70.3, which takes on some of the same course. And I think that may be part of the reason why they have put a little bit less of the cap on that race.
Okay.
Is because I think it is a little more. There's either construction going on. The run course I know has changed, but I think from the bike course standpoint, I think things are coming a little bit more congested with some kind of building outside of Tempe. Is I think what I read last. Could be wrong, but I believe that's accurate.
Yeah, it sounds about right. And is based on their arrangements with the city and looking at the course and what it's capable of holding, right?
Yep. Exactly.
So that's why some are less and more, but most of them seem to be around 2,500 or a little bit more.
Yep.
So, and then as we look at the next one, since we're out west a little bit, let's look at Boulder in 2014, the first year, right? Sound
Mm-hmm.
right? 2,700.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it was that was the first one that showed up on there. So 2,700, 2,800. Then the next year was close to that 2,800, and then 2016 was like 1,500. So it was like almost half.
Yeah.
And then this year was 1,343. So they're like going from 2,800 to 1,300 in 4 years. So I don't know what's going on there, but
well, I think everybody hates they don't like the time of the year, and I think that it's not a very scenic course, even though you think it's like Colorado, nor is it hilly. It's actually a really, really fast course. The way they designed it, it's kind of like, it's contrary as you would think of Chattanooga. Like you would think that they would make Chattanooga super scenic and super hilly, and they just haven't done it. And I think the biggest issue is with Boulder is the bike course is what a lot of people would consider not very race friendly in terms of traffic, and I believe someone actually lost their life on it last year. That is something that will deter people. It's funny because it's almost not funny, but it's interesting that in a swim, people usually it usually is the people who unfortunately pass away or lose their life in the swim. It's almost, I think, 100% of the time heart related. They have some kind of arrhythmia or heart attack or something that you couldn't have seen coming. And so it's not a natural event, but it's one of those things that's just a singular event within that person versus being hit by a car. That's a deterrent. It's a deterrent for cyclists and training to go on certain roads. It's not like, people aren't going to go in the ocean because somebody died in it or somebody passed away or somebody, it's like, versus, and like had a heart attack versus somebody goes to the beach and gets attacked by a shark, different story. Mm-hmm. And so I think that a bike an unsafe bike course and getting hit by a car is a real threat, and one of those, it's not even in my control. I mean, nor is the other one, honestly, but it's one of those like, okay, I'm not going to risk it. There's so many other options is the thing. And so people so if you don't have to risk it, then why do it? Go pick something else that's a lot safer. And so that's what people have done, and I don't see that race lasting another year.
Well, yeah, it doesn't look like it's going the right direction.
In the quote unquote triathlon mecca of Boulder, and you can't even make a race sustain. It's sad. It's piss poor, to be honest with you. I mean, if you're supposed to be like Boulder and Tucson are like the two huge places to, quote unquote, where triathletes go to train and live, and you can't even sustain and like help grow an Ironman event, which is like the ultimate brand of your sport. Do better. It's a shame.
Yeah, that's too bad. That's too bad. It looks like it may not be around there for a while. I suppose the 70.3 will stick in Boulder. All right, so, and then I was looking at Lake Placid, and that's pretty much like Wisconsin almost.
Yep.
It's just rock solid.
It's an oldie but goodie, man. People, it's really well put on. It's in a great venue. It's something people want to see, and yeah, I mean, it's just it's one of those kind of, hey, you know what you're gonna get. It's like there's no huge variable. It's a protected swim, difficult bike course, rolling run. I mean, what else? What else can you say about it? I mean,
Yeah.
that's why it continues to put out good races that sell out.
Yeah, and that it's actually kind of well, the last year it was the biggest of the 5 years. It had over 3,000 people there, or sign up, I should say.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and Mount Tremblant seems like it's about the same actually. It's pretty solid, around 2,500 every year.
Mm-hmm.
So not much to say there. Probably similar things. They just know what they're doing. They do it right, and I think that's a huge part of it too. The variant, like you just said, the protected courses and everything's just solid, and they know what they're doing, and it just rolls off right, and people seem to love it every year.
Exactly.
So now here's an interesting one. I was looking at Maryland, and the first year, did they sort of announce that late or something?
It was fairly late. I believe it was already within the season.
Okay, so that was 2014, and they did about 1,500, and then last year,
so sad.
That was the first year, but then last year though they were up. The last 2 years they've been over 2,500, so they must have figured something out down there. And
Well, they've also had shortened events both years, and so I think that eventually catches up with you.
oh, that's true. Was that? Yeah, that's
I'd
right.
be shocked if they renew after the contract's over with this one. I'd be stunned. I mean, not to poo-poo it, but you finish it like a high school field with like nobody around, from what I've heard. And if you're going to pay for a cool experience and you want that cool experience, yeah, you get it within yourself. But atmosphere sure does help. Go to Wisconsin, go to Louisville, go anywhere else, and tell me it doesn't help, or you wouldn't miss it, and you would. And so yeah, I don't see that one. That was an acquisition of the Chesapeake Man, which was a pretty, which used to be a really, really, really solid race, and it had dwindling numbers down to like 300, 400. Then again, there's so much action everywhere that, I think people are looking at location, and then they're looking at who puts on the race and how good is it. And it's really turning into now that there are so many choices you can take into, you don't have to look at a few races and be like, okay, well, I know I'm going to have to sacrifice this if I go to this one, or I'm going to have to travel farther to go to this one, or I'm going to have to be more flexible and understanding if I go to this one. Now it's just like, all right, listen, I think I got, let's see, closed by course, super safe. I know it's great. Race management company. It's in the middle of nowhere, but who cares? I know my experience is going to be great. Am I going to be stuck eating at the Golden Corral on Friday night? Maybe, but it's better if I have a better race experience versus going to like some like very densely populated downtown area to do a race that's much more likely to divert from what they're going to offer from a course standpoint, and the aid stations, the volunteering may be lackluster. So it's always that give and take, and I think with how many they have now, since they haven't really contracted as many races, you just so many options, and so you can pick. And I think ultimately it comes down to how well is the race put on, how safe do I feel, will my family enjoy it, and that's part of it. It's like it used to be, just pick a fun city to go to, and now it's like, oh well, if I know that I can pick a fun and a safe race, then who cares if it's in the middle of nowhere? To talk to any spouse of a racer and ask them what they would rather do: go to some downtown, city, and have a great lunch while their athletes are out doing this and that, or know that their significant others on a protected, safe bike course with tons of support and tons of volunteers. They're going to choose the latter. And so I think it's a huge part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Florida, have we talked about Florida yet?
Not yet. Last one.
There's actually one more I want to, but Florida is, that sells out every year too, right?
It used to. I'm not sure if it's sold out for this year, but it used to sell out super, super quick.
Yeah.
But that was before Louisville moved to October, and that was before Chattanooga moved to September. Okay. So everybody in the Southeast was always clamoring for Ironman Florida because it was the closest one. And now you also have Beach to Battleship, or you had Beach to Battleship full. So, I mean, there went from being no competition to 3, within right there in that southeast area.
And that would explain this then, because the last 5 years they've been 3,000, 3,200, 2,700, 2,900, and last year 2,200.
Yep. I think, general registration is still open for it this year.
Which I just thought, I just always assumed that one sold out.
No,
right
it's not. So I think it eventually does sell out, because I think what a lot of these races turn into are people's backup plans. If they have a race in July, August, September, and things don't go well, or they get hurt, or they have some kind of extenuating circumstances that don't allow them to prepare, or they're trying to qualify or do really well and they just either botch the race or don't do as well, then they have these later year races that stay open and they can choose to race again. In Florida, it's the last one, I think, on the North American calendar that's a full before we get to the end of the year. I'm thinking U.S. here. And so I think it's a big fallback. You see a lot. I would guess that race has more double Ironman participants in it in that year and the year that it goes on than any other race on the calendar in the country, easily. So.
And then finally, this one kind of really surprised me because I've always heard such awesome things about it. But Canada.
Well, they moved it, and that was one of the big reasons why. I think it fell. Registration fell, I believe, quite a bit. And it used to be. I'm trying to remember where they. It's now in Whistler. And it used to be in, starts with a P. I can't remember off the top of my head. Penticton, maybe? Penticton, BC? Yeah, Canada. And so they've moved it back and forth. And a lot of people say that when they moved it, it's nothing like the old course. They liked a lot of people said that the old Ironman Canada, where it was located, I'm trying to look it up now, was one of the best ones that you could do. It was just always awesome. It was always very well put on. It was always super fun. And it was, I know a lot of people from Nashville used to always go up to Ironman Canada. So I'm trying to think if it's in Whistler or it moved at some point, but something happened to where they moved it, or there was another version of Ironman Canada, maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody can fill us in on that on the group.
Yeah, I've got some Canadian peeps, and I'll reach out to them. But I'm trying to remember, there was some kind of a change in location from out of Whistler, but I'm not sure what's the registration like now.
Well, in 2012 they had 3,000 people, and then it went to 2,100, 1,900, 1,900, and last year it was 1,400. So they're down almost 1,600 since 2012.
Yeah,
that's over half.
What time of year is it? Is it a July race, I want to say, or August?
I really can't remember. So, I don't know. It's just all interesting to me to look at that.
It's into July. So, I mean, that kind of makes sense. I mean, no, they're not close, but Tremblanc in Canada, and it's third week of August. They used to have Muskoka, which used to be a full as well, which is in Canada. So, again, it's just like everything else. It just tends to get watered down.
Yeah, and especially with, I mean, it was always my impression that more and more people seem like they would be getting into Ironman, but yeah, maybe not, huh? I don't know.
Well, I mean, who knows? It's like, are you taking 50,000 people and shoving them in 10 races, or are you taking 80,000 people and shoving them into 30? It's still a cost and what you get back from a business standpoint, but still, it's like, does it seem like there's less because nothing's selling out, or are there just more races?
Yeah, because like you're talking about, you think that their magic number is like around 2,000 for a successful financial race. So anyway, that's all I had on that, and I hope that was interesting, because I found it kind of interesting just to look at like what's been happening in the trends of registration and stuff like that.
That's like a whole cast.
I know.
We'll have to do questions on the next one.
Yeah.
More group questions, but no, there's so many. I think we're over the next year or two, we're going to see a lot of changes in the Ironman North American calendar, especially with some new races dropping and maybe some new ones, popping up. But yeah, I hope they don't lose Louisville. I'll always have a sweet spot for me. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting analysis to look at the ebb and flow of registration and participation numbers in these events, and what it says about the sport, and is it on an incline or decline, and where we are going forward.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, as far as like thinking about this and like what are good places for these sorts of things, and I think obviously Louisville is a great location, but if it doesn't, fit the bill of the natives, I mean, how do you judge that, or how do you even? I mean, it's a big undertaking to move a big race like this, and I'm sure it's super inconvenient, albeit for one day, basically, for local people, but. I often wonder if, and we've talked about this before, if and for me it wouldn't take much away. In fact, it might add a little bit. Is if they did, maybe they went to a 3-loop bike course or something like that. And I don't know if that's like, if you're getting these races shorter, or not shorter, but like if you're taking the bike course down a little bit, maybe you can get by with less expensive, maybe fewer registrants or something like that. Same with the run course. If you don't have to cobble up too many neighborhoods or street corners and things like that, if you can kind of figure a way to adjust it. And I mean, I don't ever have a problem with making, as long as they're decent size loops, it's kind of nice to run by people or ride by people a few times, rather than going off into the middle of nowhere for 30 miles or something like that. And maybe that's a way to cut some expenses and make these races more viable or feasible for them.
Yeah, I mean, you do cut down on the experience, so with increased congestion, and with increased congestion also comes decrease in safety. It's just you condense that many people on a bike in one area, and it's gonna be more difficult, and there's gonna have slower times, and people hate slower times.
Well, I agree with you, except if you're at Coeur d'Alene and you had 3,000 people and you shorten it a little bit and you're still doing 2,000,
right,
just to hold the race there and make it, but again, these are all numbers, and I have no idea what it costs for Ironman to put races on, but maybe when we talk to Steve, we can kind of ask him something like that.
Yeah, we can have Steve chime in and see what he says.
And we'll be having Steve on, not next week.
Steve Del Monte, Del Monte Sports.
Inside the Mind of a Race Director, Part 2, and it'll probably be not this coming week, but the next week sometime.
Yeah, you know what? He could probably do like Part 1 of how to not suck at being a race director.
Yeah, he had that one example.
Love that.
Speaking of I mean, I think he said in the cast that they had like a bad piece of, or like the concrete was screwed up at one part. It was like there's a big lip that they were supposed to have covered or something like that, and there was like what 25 people popped their tire or something.
Yeah.
And he instantly gave them free entry to the next year race.
That's it.
So I mean, that's not giving 2,000 people a free entry or whatever, but it's something. I mean, it's somewhere in there. I think somewhere in that line of thought has to start happening, or else,
Has to be a gesture.
Yeah, there's got to be something there. Then that makes, give them that free entry next year, plus give them a couple $100 or something for the missing the swim. I don't know.
Who knows? It's not our cash. Just give it away.
Or, give them like merch, like a lot of merch or something. I don't know. That costs them like $2 for a T-shirt, and they can
seriously.
Just give them retail value. Do
right.
something, man.
That's right. If you're out there listening, do something, man.
Just do something, man. And don't flip the shark.
Don't flip the shark.
Or maybe you should flip the shark.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks again to everybody that's helping us kick off this Patreon. It's going really well, and we're just super stoked that you guys are getting behind us, and anything helps, $1, $2 a month, something like that. Let's just whatever you can do.
Yeah, just keep it rolling. Head over to our Crushing Iron, all of our social media outlets. You can go to Facebook. Please like our Facebook page. Just straight up Crushing Iron. If you want to be part of the conversation and join the community and chit chat and bring up topics and discuss, you can search Crushing Iron Group on Facebook and ask to be added. Head over to Twitter and follow Crushing Iron there. Then also you can follow us on Instagram at C26 underscore triathlon.
Understool.
Understool. Yeah, under your stool. Happy Father's Day, under the stool.
Yeah.
And as always, please email us if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Give us a review on iTunes if you have the time. And if you have any questions about coaching, feel free to email me at c26coach@gmail.com/understool.
All right, man.
All right,
Understool it is.
Understool it is.
Well, have a great remaining few hours of your Father's Day. And
I'm going to go hit up Aladdin.
Yeah, do it.
All right, dude.
All right, man.
See ya.
See ya.